Yeah, it's a very good morning from Absolutely Famous. This morning we're joined by our regular rugby analyst, former Marlborough Red Devils and King Country loose forward, Greg Brimble. Morning, Brims. Well, what a difference the All Blacks on Saturday. What a fabulous performance.
What a difference a week makes in international rugby, eh? And two big turnarounds on the weekend from the Rugby Championship sides, but that was an emphatic performance that was put out by the Men in Black on Saturday, and a really good response to the previous week's drubbing at the hands of Los Puma. So I think despite what we've been saying and what we've been thinking, then that was a fantastic performance, that, and a really good comeback and answer, I suppose, to the critics out there, of which there are many, including us.
Yeah, well, I think the critics were totally justified in what we said and what we
Absolutely.
thought, because
Yeah.
the performances were poor. We criticised Sam Cane and for his subpar performances, but I thought Sam, hats off to him. He had a fantastic test. I think his best test since I can remember on Saturday, and good on him. Fantastic.
Well, he pulled off 14 tackles, he 9 carries of the ball and 1 try assist, and some of his tackles were brutal too, weren't they, John?
They were.
They were very, very dominant tackles, ball and all, and I think that was telling. He was more effective at the breakdown, and I'll tell you what's telling for me is that in our 2 best performances this year, when we've had to come back from defeats, that was against South Africa at Ellis Park and against Argentina at Hamilton, Sam Cane had his 2 best games. So and certainly the game in Hamilton was better than his game at Ellis Park, and I thought he was terrific at Ellis Park. But he answered his critics in the best possible way on Saturday, and went up in my estimations, and you could see the smile on his face and the relief in his face afterwards as well. And good on Sam Cane, an excellent game, and he led the team round the park well, albeit being taken off again. But I don't think you could blame Sam or Ian Foster for doing that when they were up the margin that they were in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. I thought Sam was much more prominent with ball in hand too. There's a couple of nice draw and passes for tries, especially that fabulous length of the field one from the Geordie Barrett finish. But also great for Ian Foster, the coach too, Brims, back to his hometown where he played 148 games for Waikato, and I'm really pleased for him too.
Yeah, so am I, and you can see the relief in his face afterwards, and isn't it fantastic when you're winning? The whole your body language changes, the smiles come back, the pats on the back, the relief, the way that they talk at the press conference afterwards, and yeah, good on Ian Foster, because there hasn't been a coach in the history of the All Blacks that's been under more pressure, and especially these days with access to social media and everyone's got an opinion and all the rest. No one's been under more pressure as an All Black coach than Ian Foster, and he's shown his resilience. He's stuck with the same starting 15 for the 3rd time in a row, which I like to see that consistency in the selections, and perhaps that's starting to pay off as well, as the players are becoming confident with other players around them, and the style of play that they've adopted as well.
I think everything we criticised, everything a lot of people have criticised about the All Blacks performances, the breakdown, the previous problems of the line out, just the way we're playing, our tactical nous was lacking. Everything seemed to be turned around on Saturday. Something's happened in the camp.
Certainly, I think one of the most significant points of that game was how we responded to our poor performance at the breakdown the previous week in Christchurch, and we were very, very effective at the breakdown. In fact, that was probably the sole reason that we won that test in the way that we did, is that we dominated those loose exchanges and the breakdown ball. We dominated those contact areas, and our physicality, you could see, was there from the haka. You could see that they were going to take a more physical approach to it, and the Artie Savia and Samasoni Takiaho were, along with Sam Kane, were awesome at the breakdown, especially Takiaho. I mean, isn't he just in such a rich vein of form at the moment? He's going so well, and the fact, I think the other telling fact, that New Zealand only had 3 handling errors in the whole game, and put that pressure onto the Argentinian side at the breakdown and in the loose, up in their faces with their tackling, and forced many handling errors for Argentina. And certainly the breakdown was a big difference the way. And I think it's shown as well, if you want to win international rugby, you've got to, that's an area that you really do have to excel. It's just as important as any other factor of the game.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that skill factor. The 3 handling errors, and they were really challenging conditions in Hamilton, and it's been one of our weaknesses over the last 12 months, is the amount of ball we've dropped and poor kicking and everything like that, and the handling was phenomenal.
Handling was superb, wasn't it? And I mean, those conditions before kickoff were atrocious in Hamilton, and I think nobody would have predicted a 53-3 scoreline at the end in those conditions. I certainly didn't. I thought it was going to be a dour forward struggle, and the All Blacks were going to try and keep it close and play effectively a 10-man game, putting it in behind the Argentinian forwards and trying to turn them round and force those set pieces, of which they've been very dominant in, especially in the first half of games. It was. I mean, it was the skill level. At that level, the skill level's always there, John. That's not that those players don't become. They don't lose their skills overnight. What they lose is confidence, and confidence to execute, and that's what I think has affected. They can still catch and pass a ball. Everyone at that level can do that. You don't have to train them how to catch and pass a ball, but confidence comes with winning rugby, and it comes with consistent selections and showing faith in those players as well. And I think that's what Ian Foster has demonstrated, and one would hope that we can continue that improvement from Hamilton. But we've learned this year as well, John, haven't we? Not to get too carried away with a good win, because we had that fantastic win in Johannesburg, and it was like, yes, we're back on track again. It's all good. Everything's right in the world of international rugby. And then we come down with a thump in Christchurch, absolutely a big uppercut to everyone's confidence. And then we're back on the horse again in Hamilton. God knows what's going to happen in Melbourne. It's anybody's guess. But I hope they continue that improvement that they showed in Hamilton, John.
It was pretty scary because the Aussies had an off game last week and well beaten. So what's going to happen at Marvel Stadium next Thursday? Who knows? And they're a well coached side with plenty of firepower too. And you mentioned the combinations before, Brims. I think it's telling that, especially in the backs, in the midfield there with Havili and Rico Ione, there's a real chemistry developing there, and with Richie Mo'unga inside them, I think that's a really good developing combination.
Yes, I think you're correct, John. And if there's one area that demonstrates that, you're absolutely correct. It's that 10, 12, and 13, and that's where we could see that improvement in the combinations. I mean, that beautiful little slick pass at Havili through to Rico Ione to put him in under the sticks there and really seal the game for us, to really get us on top. That was a beautiful pass, and they just seem to have a really good combination, don't they? Especially, I think, with Richie Mo'unga, and I think I think you probably, if I was a selector, I'd be leaving him there, and because I thought Bowden Barrett was really, really effective when he came on as a replacement in the later on in the second half. There, Bowden Barrett was really good. Maybe that's his spot now. But the combinations between Moanga, Feely, and Awani, that was sweet to watch on Saturday, and you would have noticed as well, and it was I think it was quite obvious that they had a really mature, sensible kicking game. They managed their kicking game really well, and they varied their kicking game as well. And you could see a couple of times there those nice little chip over the top, or just a chip through underneath that Havali was putting through, and it was changing it round, it was mixing it up, and it was putting doubt in the defensive line of Argentina, because David Kidwell's influence on the Argentinian defence, and that having that flat line coming up together was really hard for us to counter in Orange. So we've varied things a bit now and putting that kick through, making them turn around, bringing the fullbacks and the wingers in, and that puts pressure on. We recycle fast ball, and we can get it out again. And that's what we were doing really well. It was so good to see those little kicks from Havili and Moanga going through there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was terrific. There's still a couple of changes I'd like to see in the team, at least issues being developed. I'd still like to see Will Jordan at fullback. I think he's got the potential to add another dimension with his speed and his uncanny anticipation. Fellow Fakatava at halfback, I'd really like to see him have a go starting there, and Severis back on the wing. I think they're three real X-factor players who can give us even more point of difference.
Well, to a certain extent, I agree with what you're saying, but Geordie Barrett, he was very good on Saturday. He had a great game. I think what we've got to do is we've got to find ways to bring Will Jordan into the game. We've got to find a way to inject him into the game more, because he's almost like he's just wasted, isn't he?
He is totally wasted. Yeah, I agree.
Saying, how do we inject his skills and his level and his speed and that into the game? It's just a waste of talent as far as I can see. But I did like Geordie Barrett there. Maybe they could swap those players around a bit, because Geordie Barrett's played a lot on the wing as well for the All Blacks. So if they could chop and change that round a bit, and on attack bring Will Jordan into the fullback role, but leave Geordie Barrett back there at fullback. And you mentioned Folau Fakatava at halfback. Well, he's yet to prove himself, but he's not going to prove himself sitting on the bench warming the pine, is he?
No.
It's Aaron Smith had his best game for a long time. He had an excellent game on Saturday, and I thought Finlay Christie just took it up another level. Isn't he a good sub to come on the little
very handy
Tasman Marco, and he's in there and he's annoying everybody. He's chipping away and he's sniping and he's barking his orders, and it's just he's just such a good little player, Finlay Christie. But fair dues to Aaron Smith. He had a very, very good game, and I was pleased to see that.
Well, just harking back to Jordan, it was his vision and pace that sparked that long-range try, that brilliant try of the season for me, that Geordie Barrett finished at the other end.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was sitting in the bar here watching the game with a mate of mine from Burke, and I was saying, when you make these changes, you lose some of these combinations and that sort of thing. And I said, there you go. I said, that's exactly what happens there. And we were sort of chipping around behind and deep in our 22 and doing it this way and that way. I said, oh, that's what happens when you bring these subs on and that. And he said, oh, is that what you mean? They scored a length of the field try. So I obviously don't know what I'm talking about, and I expect there's plenty of people out there who agree with me saying that. But Yeah, he was. We've got to get him into the game more, John, don't we? We need to find a way to utilise his pace and his skills and his level of energy as well. And Caleb Clark didn't have a bad game, but I'd love to see Sevu Reece back in there, mate, because he brings a level of energy in that, the way he looks for work is really, really impressive. And I think he looks for work more. He has a higher work rate than Caleb Clark. Caleb Clark can't, he can bump players off, which perhaps Sevu Reece can't do, but he's no slug either. And I'd love to see Sevu Reece having another crack. But there will be changes for Melbourne, obviously, because Adi Savia is not travelling with the team, staying back in New Zealand, awaiting the birth of his child. So there will be some changes in the loose forwards, John.
And Shannon Frizzell's out too, I understand, with rib injury.
Right.
So they've brought Luke Jacobson back in. I think there's going to be a time when they're going to have to inject the likes of Hoskins, Satutu, Tupou Vai into the team to give them some backing, because there's going to be injuries. And great to see Brodie Retallick back. That's a big plus. Played well, but you've got to integrate. I think once we get our combinations, which we look as though we're getting them, it's a fine balance, isn't it?
Well, it's a fine balance, and maybe we, to give those players that experience that they need, we've got to look at bringing them on in the second half and giving them, a good, 20 to 30 minutes at that international level. But great to see the big guzzler, Brodie Retallick, back in action. He got a meat pie for his reward for his efforts, didn't he? And it was great to see him there. They don't seem to be utilising Tupou Vai, and I don't know whether they've lost confidence in his ability, or they don't see him as the right fit. But I thought they might have given him a crack at blindside flanker and given us that another extra line out option as well. We'll see some changes. I didn't know that Shannon Frizzell was out, so obviously Akira Iwani's probably going to come into the starting 15 there somewhere, I would think. But I don't know whether Luke Jacobson will get a start. He hasn't played a game all year for the All Blacks, so I don't know whether they'll risk that or not. But Hoskins Satutu in particular, I would like to see at number 8. He's a free-ranging, wide-running loose forward, isn't he? He's not as big in the tight exchanges, but he certainly gives us another dimension. He's got fantastic skills as well. Hoskins Satutu, he was a very good basketballer too, and he's got wonderful ball skills. So, and he deserves a start at 8 in the absence of Adi Savia, as far as I'm concerned.
So if you're picking your team for Thursday week, it's funny not to have a Bledisloe Cup match Thursday at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, but any changes you'd make in the team, apart from the enforced ones?
No, I don't think so, John. I'd like to see that consistency carry through there. I'd like to see Hoskins Satutu starting at number 8 and Akira Iwani starting in on the blindside flank at number 6 in place of Shannon Frizzell. But the rest of them, with maybe the exception of Sevu Reece on the wing, I think I'd leave it as it is.
Yeah, I'm with you until we lock the Bledisloe Cup up. I'd just like to see one change in particular: Will Jordan at fullback and Geordie Barrett, if they put him on the wing, whatever, he'll do the job there. But yeah, Jordan at fullback for me is the big one. And what about great to see the Springboks back. That was a bit of a stop-start game, but it was certainly real test match stuff, wasn't it? 24-8 to the Boks.
Wasn't there some feeling in that?
Yeah.
Evan Esmith. I mean, he was just a man on a mission. He wanted to eat, John Alatoa. They were fired up for that, weren't they? They were obviously hurting from that loss in Adelaide the week before, and and the Aussies had every opportunity there to put the Springboks to the sword in the first international game at the new Allianz Stadium, the old Sydney Football Stadium in Sydney. So that was only a week old. What a fantastic facility that is! But how they couldn't Australia couldn't lift themselves in an environment like that, and after with some confidence after the win in Adelaide. But yeah, the Springboks they were on fire. They meant business. It was a bit of a dour game in places. It was a bit stop start and that, but you know, you get that a lot with Springboks games, don't you? It's they like to slow the game down to their pace, and they like to go aerial a lot, and they really like the rough and tough exchanges. That's right up their alley. That was an all in. That was good old Test rugby. That I loved it. It was just great to see, but equally great to see Ella Alatoa after the game going and getting a beer out of the fridge in the changing room.
I was going to mention that. That was a pretty special moment.
Up Stephen Espith, and so good to see that that being left on the field, and that spirit of rugby continuing off the field, which is much more than you could say for Pablo Matera's snub of Dane Coles when he went to shake his hand after the game, because Dane Coles had Pablo Matera wound right up, didn't he? I mean, Pablo Matera was tighter than a drum skin. He was, and Dane Coles could see it, and he was beating away on that drum skin until Pablo Matera just lost his cool completely. So the spirit of rugby is alive and well, John, and it's great to see.
It is, and don't we love having the likes of Dane Coles in our team? Because you just know he's gonna piss the opposition off big time.
Well, and he's just a cheeky little bugger, and he snipes away, doesn't he? He's mouthy, and he's right. He's like an annoying, stone in your shoe that you can't get rid of, and he played his part really well.
Played very well.
He had a really good game, John, and was much more effective than Cody Taylor was last week. And just when we thought Dane Coles was gone, then he comes back and puts in a really good, solid, 25 minutes like that, and 25 minutes, and really proved his worth and showed his experience as well.
It was good stuff. My individual try of the weekend was the young teenage South African sensation, the winger, Cannon Moody. Yep. He raced up, chased a box kick, took it on the full, and then powered away from the defence. What a try that was.
And he's only 19 years old, isn't he? I mean,
yep.
Where did South Africa just keep on churning out these wingers? It's like they've got a winger factory over there hidden away somewhere up in the high veld or something, and they train them from 3 years old or something and bring them through the system. But isn't he a prospect for the future for the Springboks? He's like that Joseph Swali that plays for the Roosters in the NRL. He's about the same age. He's big and tall and lean. He gets up above the opposition players. He can run like the wind, and he's got that youthful exuberance on his side as well. So, and you can see how much that try that he scored meant to the team. When the whole team come on, the subs were behind the dead ball line. They all come on. They all jumped on him. You could just see the joy in that team and how happy they were for the young fella scoring that try. So Moody, mark him as a player for the future. He could be there at the World Cup next year and create all sorts of problems for the opposition. Yeah,
lovely. Great to watch those young fellas coming through. Brims, Thursday week at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. What are you picking? I mean, this is the best rugby championship probably ever as far as closeness goes. Anyone can win it.
Well, it is, John. Every team has won 2 and lost 2, so that's great. New Zealand are on top of the table now after sitting in last place for the last couple of weeks. courtesy of their much-needed bonus point on the weekend. It takes them to 10 points, and the rest of the teams all on 9 points each, with only points differential between them. So this is still anybody's competition. It shows how important the bonus points are, and I'm picking a New Zealand victory, and I'm picking a good, solid, if not 53-3 scoreline. I think it'll be in the 30s, and I think New Zealand will dominate this game, and then make possibly a couple of changes for the last game of the championship against Australia. So I'm picking a very good win for the boys down in Melbourne. Now, who would take their home game in a Bledisloe series in rugby? Who would take their home game to Melbourne in the middle of the AFL finals? I mean, that's why they're playing on a Thursday night down there, because they can't get anywhere else. But all the talk down there is about these fantastic AFL finals that are on at the moment. And I watched a couple of the games on the weekend, and man alive, it was. I don't want to talk about AFL because this program's not about AFL, but the game over in Western Australia, and Bulldogs were up 42-1, and they lost. Oh, I can't believe. Anyway, it's very, very hard to garner support and interest in AFL Mad Melbourne in the middle of the week for the Wallabies. So every Kiwi in Victoria is going to be there at Marvel Stadium on Thursday night, and there will be 15 Australians that won some tickets in a raffle somewhere that had to go, and it's going to be a very good. I apologise to my Australian friends out there, but I'm sorry, but I think it's going to be a comfortable victory for the All Blacks based on last week's performances from both teams.
I certainly hope so, Brims. It all depends, of course, doesn't it, on the mindset of the both sides. The All Blacks can stay switched on if Dave Rennie can weave some magic. But yeah, you're right. And I think the good thing about the All Blacks, we're seeing the influence now of particularly Jason Ryan, the forward coach, coming in, and Joe Smith will be starting to have influence filter through too.
Yeah, well, Jason Ryan's made a huge difference, isn't he? And it's interesting to note as well that since he's been there, we haven't conceded a try from a line out drive. It's he's had a terrific influence on the forwards. Not so sure about Joe Smith yet, but obviously I think he's had a say in the selections. Joe Smith, I think that's where he's had the most influence. Has been in asking for consistency in selections, and I think that's been significant in the improvements that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it, to see what happens in that coaching space, and especially on the influence that they have. But look, we've got to get behind. We've got to get behind Ian Foster and that team. It's obvious now that they're not going to change anything for the Rugby World Cup. So let's put that behind us, and let's get behind the team and really support them. We'll still have our opinions and our thoughts and everything on it, but that doesn't mean we don't support our mighty All Blacks and wish them all the best as we ride along bravely on their coattails and accepting all the plaudits when they win and bagging the shit out of them when they lose.
Well, it's only because we're passionate about it. We love them. We do love them. And yeah, no, it was just great to see the All Blacks playing real All Black rugby again. And yeah, long may it continue. Brims, thanks, mate. And how's it going down there in Nowra with the Jayco business? The caravan's rolling out the door?
Yeah, caravan's rolling out the door. We had a massive month last month, mate. It was huge. We sold and delivered, combined over 70 caravans last month. So it's going really well, mate. Thanks. Yeah, locals have got behind us, and the support's been there, and really enjoying it, mate. But if it could stop raining down here for a bit, it'd be even better.
You come and visit us in Queensland. It's a nice sunny day today.
Yeah.
Brims, thanks a lot for your expertise, mate, and have a great week, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
My pleasure, mate, and I look forward to an All Blacks victory in Melbourne as well next week.
Same.